think we're starting. Hello, I'm Viv Lambert. I think we're starting at 2 o'clock, so I'll just chat a little bit to check that everybody's actually in situ and ready to listen. I've been sitting here for a couple of minutes talking to Henry and watching you all arriving from all over the world. Very exciting. I've done a couple of webinars now, but I still haven't quite got used to the fact that there's little old me sitting here in my cubicle in Woodstock near Oxford in England, and you lot all around the world able to see me and hear me, I hope. So welcome to the online conference, and I'm going to talk today about tips to get kids talking. Hopefully you'll find it useful. It's not that easy to do speaking activities via a webinar because obviously I'm the only person who can speak, but do feel free to respond to what I'm saying in your chat box, and any questions we'll try and get back to you at the end. So I think everybody who's coming should be here now, so I will begin. Yeah, 10 top tips to get kids talking. Bit of a tongue twister there. When I told somebody I was doing this talk, they said, surely teachers need tips on how to stop kids talking. As we know, primary classrooms are often quite noisy places. But here, obviously, we're talking about getting them to speak in English. And speaking fluently is one of the greatest challenges when learning a language. You need to think and speak at the same time, and this requires a lot of hard work and a lot of practice. And we're not just talking about kids here. I've actually been learning Spanish for a few years now, and a trip to Spain this summer, my family pushed me forwards every time we needed to speak in a shop or on the street. And I was completely dumbstruck, terrified to just ask the way somewhere or ask for the price of a cucumber. What if I got it wrong? What if they didn't understand me? Or even worse, what if they laughed at my funny accent? So I can totally identify with the challenges facing learners when it comes to actually speaking. There's so much to say about speaking, and difficult to know where to begin. So I decided to structure my talk around 10 tips to help you get kids talking. So my first tip is to start now. By start now, I mean start young. Children are less inhibited when they're young. When they get older, or upper primary and teenagers, they start to get more inhibited and embarrassed about what they're going to sound like. Young kids are good mimics, and they can get their mouth around the sounds more easily. We know from bilingual children that they have no difficulty with accents. So really the earlier, the younger you get kids speaking, the better. But also by start now, I meant start at the beginning of the lesson. So start with a warm-up activity, perhaps using a chant or a song from a previous lesson, or a game, like find somebody who has a birthday in April, or these type of warm-up games, just to get them loosened up and speaking from the very beginning of the lesson. Classroom language is an obvious way to get speaking into the classroom from the start, using greetings when they come into the classroom, asking hello, how are you, what's the weather like today, what's the date today. When you leave the classroom, saying see you tomorrow, and using the English all the time to praise them, saying, well done, or that was great, good job. I always think of classroom language as kind of language that comes for free. The kids don't have to actually learn it or focus on the structures. It's a chunk of language that just sinks in if you use it time and time again. There's no need to analyse it. So I think there are lots of ideas, I'm sure you're already doing them, for establishing routines of classroom language from the beginning. When I was last in the classroom, I used to use a clapping chant, and this was kind of to get them to stop speaking, actually, which is a bit ironic. But when there was a lot of noise in the classroom, I would chant, "Are you listening?" And they all replied, "Yes, we are." So every time they heard that, "Are you listening?" they would all reply, "Yes, we are." So I never had to actually teach them those structures. So that's the kind of thing I think that you can establish from the outset and use every day, and they will pick it up without even realising. So that's the first tip, to start now. Start early and start young. Secondly, I thought we have to talk about listening. So let them listen is my second tip. Expose children to lots of listening. There's you, the teacher, so teacher talk. There are stories and songs. There's different media, CDs and videos, and they can also listen to each other. So expose them to as many different sources of listening as you can. Different voices and accents. Listening and speaking are truly integrated, and half the skill of speaking is actually about listening. You need to give kids time to absorb, just like when we're learning our mother tongue. Remember that when babies learn their first language, they spend a lot of time listening before they're able to speak. So as a writer, I'm always trying to find different ways to present listening material to provide as much variety as possible. On this picture you can see a few different ways that we used in the last course I wrote, Story Central. We have CDs, storytelling videos, as well as the stories themselves, which can be read by the teacher. I've put an example here of one of the stories from Story Central. And this one you can read to the kids. They can listen to the audio, or they can watch a professional storyteller telling this story on the video. So we mustn't forget to give them time, let them listen before we can expect them to be able to speak. My third tip, which ties in with this, is to prepare them. Before we can expect kids to speak, we need to pre-teach the language and provide lots of practice. Drilling, repetition, choral activities. I'm going to come back to these because that makes it all sound very traditional and a bit boring, but actually we can disguise these drills and these repetitive activities in many different ways. Let them join in when they're ready. Again, there are ways to wait until children feel confident and ready to join in themselves. And finally, make sure they know what they have to do. It's all very well thinking the kids know this language and then asking them to do an activity, but if it's not clear exactly what they're supposed to be doing, then they're going to fall at the first hurdle. The example here on this screen shows a chain game. There are lots of games like this, like sometimes called the market game. I'm going to market and I'm going to buy a banana type thing. This one, I have a bird. The next kid adds another animal. I have a bird and a dog. The third child adds another. I have a bird and a dog and a frog. Now the child might think of this as a game, a sort of memory game, a chain game, adding a different animal each time, but actually you're also drilling the structure. I have a. So I think there are lots of different ways that we can prepare kids and provide lots of practice. Games like I Spy, What's the Time, Mr. Wolf, I Went to Market, repetitive games that help them to embed the language in their minds. This gives them security and makes them feel happy about the language. They've said it so many times it becomes second nature. And letting them join in when they're ready, it provides some opportunities for them in a secure and non-threatening way through things like songs and chants, where maybe you do the activity as a whole class, but it's never clear how many of the class are joining in. So if the shyer ones or less confident ones don't feel ready, perhaps they can wait until they feel confident and then start to join in. I've got an example of a song coming up here. Songs are, I think, the ideal way to let children join in when they're ready. This song is from a song video from Story Central. I really wanted to show you the video, but Henry told me that it wouldn't work, which is a bit of a shame, but I think you'll get the idea just from this picture. So this video shows the actions. There's a boy here doing the actions while the song is playing, and you also have the karaoke version of the song on the screen. So kids can join in when they like. I'm going to play you a bit of this song and see if you feel like joining in at all. I'm sure if you had the video you would definitely want to join in, but I'll see if you can hear this.
Chapter 6, Lesson 5.
Can you hear?
Activity 1. My pets.
Great.
I have a turtle and a cat. I have a hamster and a rat. I have a fish and a mouse. They all live here in my house. I love my pets.
Join in now. It's the play.
They love me. I love my pets. They're my family. I don't have any brothers or sisters, you see. My pets are my family.
Okay, you can all sing this
I
kind
have
of
a
verse.
bird
Are you singing?
and a dog. I have a rabbit and a frog. All these animals live with me. My pets are my family.
Now, I don't know about you, but I cannot hear that song without joining in. But if you were feeling a little bit shy and you didn't feel ready to join in, that's also fine. So obviously these kind of songs and chants are a great way to get kids to listen and to enable them to join in when they feel ready. Excuse my voice, my singing voice, by the way, but I just can't help it. Okay, so songs help them to embed the language in their mind, and they help, of course, with intonation and pronunciation. And this brings me to my next point. Number 4, give plenty of pronunciation practice. How can kids be expected to pronounce something if they have to say something if they can't yet pronounce the sounds? Now, all our course books have lots of pronunciation activities in them. Here's an example of a chant, which you could also call a tongue twister. And this one was particularly aimed at our Spanish-speaking learners who I think have a lot of problems with the h sound. So this chant, I have a hamster in my house, a hungry hamster in my house. Now to say it a little bit faster, I have a hamster in my house, a hungry hamster in my house. I have a hamster in my house, a hungry hamster in my house. These kind of chants, again, kids can join in when they feel confident, and they can play games with them, saying them as fast as they can, clapping out the rhyme. I have a hamster in my house. Saying it as a tongue twister. But one idea for an activity, you'll see I've got a flashcard here of a hamster. And in the classroom, what you can do is use the flashcard if they make a mistake with the h sound. So instead of drawing their attention to it and going through explaining what they've done wrong, just point to the hamster flashcard. And this will jog their memories and remind them that they're supposed to say h. And this kind of pronunciation work can lead on to phonics and obviously writing work once they start to connect the sounds with spelling. So pronunciation practice, extremely important as a basis for speaking, preparation for speaking. So my next tip, give them a purpose. I think children, more than adults, need to see a reason for speaking. For example, to complete a picture or to find some information or to put on a play, so that the end product is a motivating factor for them. Where adults will just learn a language as a kind of intellectual game, or just because they want to learn, children kind of need a purpose for speaking, and a purpose that they can relate to, a communicative need. So we need to set goals for activities and make sure that the activities are structured and supported and have a clear outcome. So guessing games, again using repeated chunks of language like 20 questions, and miming games are particularly good for this. Information gap activities, pair and group work, telling stories, role plays, personalization activities. These are all ways that we can give kids a purpose for speaking in the classroom. So again, as a writer, I'm always trying to incorporate different information gap activities into the materials I write. And sometimes it's hard to set them up on paper, but I've got a couple of examples here that I'll show you. So this one here that you can see on the page, do you like pizza? In this activity, put a lot of food flashcards at the front of the classroom face down, and ask children to take it in turns to come to the front and turn over the top card. They look at it, and the class take turns to put up their hands and ask, do you like pizza? The child at the front answers, no, I don't, unless the card shows a pizza, in which case they answer, yes, I do. And the child who asks takes their place at the front. So they see it as a game. It is a kind of information gap where the children asking don't know what's on the flashcard. Flashcards are a great way a great resource for information gap activities. This is a speaking game, an example of a speaking game here. In this game, you hand a piece of paper to each child. They tear it into 4 pieces and draw an object that they possess on each piece. They colour each picture, and then they write a list of their objects on a separate piece of paper. For example, a yellow ruler, a red book. Then put the children into groups of 3 or 4. They put all the pictures together face down and mix them up. Then each child takes 4 pictures. The aim is to get their own object back by asking questions like, have you got my yellow ruler? Yes, I have. When they get their picture back, they can cross it off the list. I'm sure you do these kinds of games already. There's nothing new really in these ideas here, but I'm just trying to sort of reinforce and remind you of different ways to bring this kind of need for communication into the classroom. Spot the difference is another obvious activity. Your books may be full of spot the difference activities, but you can make this into more of a communicative game or speaking game by giving one picture to one child and another picture to the other child. And the children have to describe their pictures in order to find out the difference. So in this example, the child with picture A might say, my monster has 5 ears. And the child with picture B would say, my monster has 6 ears. So they know that that's one of the differences. Storytelling. Storytelling is another great way to get kids speaking. And you can turn this into a kind of information gap too. Children may be familiar with this story of the lion and the mouse. So once you've taught them the basic vocabulary, they really don't need very much vocabulary for this story, which is why I chose it. The lion, the mouse, hunters. Hand out pictures of this story in jumbled order. Ask the children to put them in order and tell the story for them to check. Then put the kids into groups of 8. Each child takes a picture. They look at it and prepare a description of what's happening in their picture. So the lion is sleeping. The lion is going to eat the mouse. The hunters catch the lion. These kind of very simple language. So children describe their pictures without showing them to each other, and then they can try to stand in the correct order. They check by revealing their pictures in turn and telling their part of the story. After this, obviously, they can go on to write the story in their notebooks as a follow-up activity. Acting out is another motivating activity to get kids speaking. This slide shows children acting out a story from Story Central, The Hungry Giraffe. This is a folk tale about how the giraffe got his long neck. So here you can see the monkey kindly offering the giraffe some bananas, because the giraffe can't reach the trees at this stage. Masks and props enable children to be somebody else. They can talk in a different voice, makes them less inhibited, and they have a reason for speaking in order to perform the play or the story. I included this picture from Story Central to show you the story of the hungry giraffe. Okay, so I think we're moving on now from giving them a purpose to the next tip. Number 6, personalise. Now, I think personalisation activities are kind of natural information gap, really, because you don't know what the other person is going to say unless you know them very, very well. You may not know, how many pets they have or what they can do or when their birthday is. So children are motivated to speak about themselves as well. They like talking about themselves. Their surveys and questionnaires are meaningful, and they give children a choice and give everybody an opportunity to talk. So class surveys are a way of involving the whole class in a real personalisation activity, which they collect information from each other. So here you can see a survey about pets, another about abilities, and then the class vote, which is perhaps requires a little more language input, but you may not know whether kids would choose cats or dogs, and if they had to vote for one or the other, which would they choose? So drawing on their personal feelings shows them that you think their opinion is valid and gives you an opportunity to get to know the kids and what they really think. So you're not having to provide any artificial information for them to exchange. The information is genuine and it's theirs. Here's a personalisation activity, a game. So give the children a piece of paper to write 3 things that they like doing. The examples here: I like watching TV, I like playing football, I like meeting my friends. Then ask them to move around the room and find somebody who has lots of things in common with them. Now again, I haven't talked you through the stages. You need to prepare the kids for this activity with the grammar and vocabulary they need, and also with the functional exchange. So here I've put in the speech bubbles, I like playing football, do you? And the replies would be, sorry, I don't, or me too. So they go around the room telling each other what they like and listening to the other classmates' responses. So the aim is to find the person they have most in common with and then report back to the class. This kind of activity teaches kids to value other people's preferences and opinions too. And talking of valuing opinions and giving different opinions, here's another activity I've used in class. Have a look at this picture. Can you describe it for me? What can you see? You can see Tuscany, someone suggests. Yes, what's it like? Can you give you some adjectives to describe it? Picturesque, very nice. Lush, sky's blue, dreamy, peaceful. Okay. Now, relaxing right here. Okay, enough. Now imagine you're a teenager and you live in a little house on the hill there. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no bus to town, you've got no friends living nearby. Can you describe it again? Boring, lonely, deserted, awesome, isolated, sad, remote. Brilliant. The activity works. Getting kids to describe a picture and then reconsider it from a different point of view will help them to understand there isn't always a correct answer, and other people's opinions are just as valid as their own. And this ability to analyse and think about points of view is a key critical thinking skill. Okay, we're near the end now. My next point, remember their age. I'm sure you all do this as teachers, but it's very important to keep activities within the age, interests and abilities of the child. So we can't expect them to do things in English that they can't yet do in their mother tongue. Remember, they're not necessarily competent communicators in their own language. So as a writer, I'm always trying to gear materials to the ages and interests of the children. So on this page, you can see different things. Discussions, is socialising online good or bad? Now, you perhaps wouldn't use that with a 6-year-old, but maybe you would with a 13, 14-year-old. So just different activities are going to suit different ages and interests. It's fairly obvious, but I had to include it in there. Number 8, be clear about when they can use L1. So give clear instructions, prepare them well, praise them for using English, but do let them know if it's okay for them to use their own language. And use strategies to make sure that English is used when you want it to be used. I think a lot of these critical thinking activities are quite high-level thinking, and you can allow them to use their own language. But if they're supposed to, if you've prepared them well to say something in English and they do lapse into their own language, then there are various strategies you can use. For example, repeating back to them what they have said, but in English, or just reminding them, a gentle reminder, say that again in English, please. Remodelling it, responding to it in English. I think somebody's one step ahead of me with my next point, which was, yes, number 9, don't overcorrect. You can help kids with their speaking, but don't overcorrect them. Remember that fluency is the aim in a speaking activity and not accuracy. They need plenty of encouragement, so they will speak up even if they're not totally convinced about their contribution. They need to feel confident, and more than that at this stage, we want to nurture in them a positive attitude towards speaking and learning English. So plenty of praise. Well done. Very good. That's right. Try again. So we're coming to the very end of my talk now, just to recap on my 10 top tips to get kids talking. Number 1, start now, start early and young. Number 2, let them listen so they have time to absorb language before they can produce it. 3, prepare them well for every activity you expect them to do. Number 4, give them plenty of pronunciation practice. Number 5, give them a purpose. Make a communicative need in the classroom with information gap activities and personalization activities. Included number 6, personalize. Number 7, remember their age and make sure the activities are appropriate to their age and interests. Number 8, be clear about when they can use their own language. If you don't mind them using their own language, then make sure that they're clear about that, and make sure they're clear about when they need to use English. Number 9, don't overcorrect them, because we really want to nurture a positive attitude to speaking. So, what can number 10 be possibly? Have fun. Speaking should be fun. It's a kind of treat at the end of the lesson, but also throughout the lesson. You've had all this input, done all this hard work, all this preparation, this grammar and vocabulary that you've absorbed and sorted out in your mind, and now you're ready to produce and you're ready to speak. So by using a variety of activities, songs and rhymes and chants and dialogues and stories and games, keeping it short, changing the focus, this will all help children to have fun, and as we all know, children learn best when they're having fun. So let's get them talking, keep them talking. And that's the end of this presentation. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it and that you learned something from it, or got a few new ideas from it. Thank you. I think I'm supposed to be doing about half an hour, but I'm not sure if Henry's gone off for a
No, I'm here still. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Very good. Excellent presentation. I was just wondering, seeing as we've had so many comments in the chat box, if you'd be able to stop around for a few more minutes and perhaps answer some questions. If anybody's got some.
I'm trying my best. Yes, I'm happy to try.
Okay. So, eyes on the chat box in, please, everybody. If you can type in your questions for Viv, if you have some, about the talk, then she's going to stay for a short while and answer a few for us. So please write in the chat box now if there's something you would like to ask.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling back as well, because I think there were perhaps a couple of questions along the way, and a couple of people who were a step or two ahead of me and giving me my next tip before I'd said it. So hopefully we're on the same wavelength anyway.
Brilliant. Okay, so I've seen quite a few come in now, actually. If you scroll to the bottom of your chat box, Viv, and see the ones that have just been written in there, and maybe pick a few.
Most people are saying nice things. Thank you. Everybody's saying so many nice things. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Viv. Can't see any questions yet, which is brilliant. Maybe I covered everything.
So here's one. Should I correct all my students' mistakes or is it better not to disturb their speaking? From Maria.
Well, did Maria see slide number, where is it? Slide number 9. Don't overcorrect.
Goes back to 9.
So I would say definitely do not correct them all the time. If they're in the middle of an activity and they're still able to do the activity, then definitely let them carry on, because our aim with speaking activities is fluency and not accuracy. Now, if there are so many mistakes that they're completely stuck and their partner doesn't understand what they're saying, then obviously then you're going to have to intervene. But I think if they make a couple of mistakes, then I really wouldn't worry. I think we have to remember that language is all about communication, and if they're able to communicate, it doesn't matter how many mistakes they make along the way. Different if you're in an exam situation, and different with writing, which, you know, obviously has to be a little bit more accurate. But I think in these type of speaking activities, especially with young children, just let them enjoy it and don't correct them too much. Just hold back from correcting them all the time.
Thank you, Viv. A few people are wondering about situations as well where the students obviously have different native languages, and should you enforce a rule where you get them to only speak in English in the classroom, or is that counterproductive?
So you mean in a multilingual situation?
Or, well, should you teach them in their mother language occasionally as well, in the mother tongue? Break into that, or just always try and use English, I think is the
I
question.
think you have to use mother tongue a lot with young kids, because again, you want them to feel at ease and to know what's going on, and there's quite a lot of explaining and preparing activities and setting things up, and I think all of this can be done. A lot of this can be done in the mother tongue. But I think perhaps there are parts of the lesson that you keep to English. So like I said at the beginning, perhaps when you go in, make sure the first thing you do, the first activity, is using English. And, you know, keep on interspersing the class with actual English speaking. I think some language teachers can go through the whole class and hardly speak any English, which seems completely wrong. But when you first asked, I didn't know whether you meant in sort of multilingual classes, and if you do, then I think it's a lot harder, because which language is the teacher going to use? And I think actually although it's harder, I think you're in the luckiest position really, because the whole situation is like these artificial information gaps we're trying to set up. The whole situation is going to have to happen in English for everybody to understand. And I think those kids are quite lucky, because they're likely to progress faster, because they have that need to speak in English, because they have different mother tongues from perhaps their classmates. So a mixture of answers there. I hope that was clear. It was a bit garbled, a bit waffly.
No, that makes perfect sense to me. Sorry, I didn't phrase the question my best either. Okay, so I think we've got time for one more. Let's see what's come in for us. Lots coming in at the moment. I'm sorry we won't be able to deal with these all now, but you know, you can contact us via the email address I'm going to share. You can write to us here at Macmillan, and we can forward on some more to Viv if you have time. Okay.
What about distracted students?
Yeah, that's a good one to pick up on.
Yeah, I don't know. At the very beginning, I mentioned about the sort of clapping rhyme. I mean, my last experience in the classroom was actually teaching French to English kids here, and I found discipline really difficult, actually, really difficult. And I think they thought that the French lesson was a bit of a laugh, so because I did a lot of games and songs and things, so I think it was quite hard to get them to actually sit down. But I did find these kind of repeated like clapping rhymes and things worked quite well. And if you can use one of these activities to try and calm them down or discipline them, but also combine that with some English, then you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. So I mean, the example I gave at the beginning was this clapping rhyme that we used to do, where the teacher says, "Are you listening?" and everybody will stop. If they don't stop, you keep on asking, and they need to respond, "Yes, we are." And there are different things like that, or stand up, sit down quietly, stand up, sit down, look at me, and get them to actually stop and do a little action or repeat a chant back to you or something. But yeah, I think I don't envy you. I think disruptive students are a big problem. And again, I think there are these little strategies we can use, but again, a lot of it comes down to motivating them in the first place. So I'm hoping that if you're using materials that are aimed at the right age group and the activities are achievable and fun and interesting, they will be more motivated and less likely to be disruptive. But it is a tricky one.
Excellent. Thank you, Viv. So I think that rounds things off nicely for today. Well, for Viv's talk, sorry, because we do have one more coming. Viv, would you like to say a few final words to everybody?
Yes, just to say thank you very much for listening. And yeah, again, I'm sorry that we couldn't actually do any speaking because of the forum, the webinar forum. But it's been great to have your little comments throughout, and then most of them have been so encouraging and positive. So thank you very much, everybody, wherever you are. And yeah, I hope you enjoy teaching your speaking in your English lessons over the next couple of weeks and forevermore. Thank you.
And it seems Rafa's a bit camera shy, so we will...
He's actually right under the desk at my feet now. He's giving me a...
Oh, right.
He's sort of pawing at me.
The dog is in the room.
It's 2:45 and he gets fed at 3, so yeah, he'll be on my lap. He'll be on my lap.
So we better let you go and do that. Okay. So
Thanks, Henry.
thank you, Viv. Great job. So you can log out now if you wish.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
See you again sometime soon.
You too. Take care and well done.
How do I log out?
Oh, you just X off. If you just close down in the top right-hand corner. I'm just going to stop the recording now as well while we have a break.
Bye.
Bye, Viv.
About all this. I'm just seeing your face on there, but maybe it should be mine. But anyway, I'll
yeah,
go.
now that's better.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, hello everyone. Sorry about all the glitches, and welcome to the last session of today. And thank you very much for joining this. It's going to be quite a short session. I'm Michael Randall. I am the editor-in-chief of the Macmillan Dictionary, macmillandictionary.com. And I'm here to give a few ideas about using the Macmillan Dictionary to build vocabulary. And particularly talk about the way the dictionary can support you in choosing the right words, the words that you really need to use, and also, crucially, in how to use those words in the most effective and natural way. I might have to talk a little bit quickly because the session isn't very long, but this PowerPoint that you see here